Guys, this is the second, actually the third.
First and
The prologue
foremost,
actually wasn't even a
you
lesson,
must
so it's
decide
only the
what sort
second
of story
lesson
you
where we
want to
learned
write.
the rules of the
It's
game
no good
to write a murder
getting halfway
mystery.
through and realizing you attract in the wrong
But at this
type.
point, I'm thinking
As I'm sure
maybe
you know,
an
there
AI
are many
also
different kinds
wrote
of crime fiction,
this course
ranging
because
from the light-hearted thrillers
she never really
to
gets to the
violent,
point.
sordid tales, and from murder mysteries
Because
to
I've
novels
already
with
watched
strong
this lesson
social
in its
messages.
totality, and
I have written nearly every type there is. But I
she starts off by
specialize
saying
in
there aren't
murders of
any rules.
quiet,
The
domestic
title of the
interest.
chapter is
And it is
The
that
Rules of the
type
Game.
story that I shall be telling you
And
about.
then she goes on to say,
I
well, this
write
other
primarily
author,
to entertain.
Mr. Knox, has a whole
Nevertheless,
set of rules.
there is a dash of the old morality play in there. The
So,
act
and it
of
never
hunting
gets
down
to the
guilty
point. So
to
I
defend
don't
the
know about this
innocent
course.
and
I
vindicate the
hope
ordeals
that by
they
the
have
end of
gone
this course I
through.
have the murder mystery
You
novel
must think
that
of
I'm
these types of stories
envisioning
quite simply
for
a
myself.
puzzle or a game.
But
It is one of many tricks
just
I
look at
learned from the
the
master,
grotesqueness
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle,
of the
and
AI
his creation,
copy-paste
Sherlock Holmes. The
face
reader
portrait
pits their wits against the
contortion.
detective, and we
It's-
shall see who comes out on top. An
Okay,
intricate puzzle
you know.
yields far more interesting results. It is not merely a case of who is the least likely culprit, but how we get there. I suppose this is rather
See,
a
this is the
fallacy,
part where she says,
because
like,
there are no
actually, I don't have any
formal rules for
rules
writing
of the
anything.
game, even though the chapter is called Rules of the Game.
There are some things that I believe to be good or bad sportsmanship.
Sportsmanship, because it's all a game. It's about
Ronald
the
Knox,
reader
my
and
contemporary
the
as a crime
detective
writer, famously
playing
came up with
some
what he
kind of
called
game with each
10
other.
commandments for writing a satisfying crime story.
So Mr. Knox has 10
He
commandments.
wrote that it must present the elements of the mystery to the reader at an early stage of proceedings, including, but not limited to, the introduction of the murderer,
And the camera
of
zooms
course,
in, not limited
and
to.
work to gratify the reader's curiosity by the close.
Okay, so introduce
I
actually
almost
who
always
did
introduce
it
the murderer in the first few chapters.
in the first few
Or
chapters.
At the very least, we'll
Okay.
have another character or the narrator.
I mean, that's
mention the
a,
culprit
we can consider
very
that
early
a
on.
rule. So introduce.
As for the second rule, that all supernatural
Murderer.
agencies are ruled out as a matter
Immediately.
of course. I have to say, I think the supernatural
The second rule
can be a
is
part of
you
some
can't
people's
have
lives, so it could be
like
wrong
Deus
to ignore
ex
it when
machina,
writing
just
about mysteries.
a ghost
Of course,
giving away clues.
the
That's just too
spirits
easy.
cannot
That
convey
would
a vital clue
give away.
through a
Of course, it
seance.
would give away
That would
all
not
the
be fair
momentum in
or
the story
reasonable.
if you just
But a murderer can use the
give
seance
everything
to convey
away
some
because
vital information
some
that
ghost told you or
appears
some
to be a
spirit told
message
you
from the
that. Of
spirit.
course, we're not going to do that. That's not what I envisioned for a murder mystery
This
anyways.
idea appears in my book,
No
The Citadel
spirits.
Mystery, in which I play
Telling-
completely fair about the nature of the murder.
Who done it?
Allow me to read to you.
And now
As
she's
we
going to
join our
read
characters, the seance
from one
is
of her books.
underway. The
It
table
doesn't really
started
illustrate
rocking
anything.
slowly.
Actually, she just said not to use supernatural
sure it's
elements,
V?
but here
It can't
she's
be.
given an example of
TRAV.
supernatural
It
elements,
doesn't
but
make sense.
of course, yeah, I get it. She's
Trevelyan,
trying to tell
of
us
course,
how
said
to
Mrs.
use the
Willett.
supernatural in a way
Captain
that
Trevelyan.
doesn't ruin the story. So that's what
You've
she's
got a
doing here.
message for Captain Trevelyan.
What bothers me about
No.
this part here
Well,
is
what
that
is it then?
when she's reading,
The
why
table
didn't production
begins
let
to
her read
rock.
from the book?
Slowly.
She's
Rhythmically.
always referring to her
So
books.
slowly that it was easy
Okay,
to
she's
count
always
the
saying,
letters.
you know, I
D.
wrote this book, I did that in this book, I
Of
wrote so many
course.
books where I did all of
E.
these methods and techniques.
A.
And then when she's
D.
literally reading an excerpt,
Dead.
she's just staring into the abyss.
Somebody
She's
is
just
dead.
staring with her dead
Instead of
eyes
yes
right
or
into the
no,
camera. It's
The
weird.
table began to rock again till it reached
If a
the letter
professor
T.
of literature would
T.
have given a
Do you
lecture on
mean
the subject,
Trevelyan?
he would
Yes.
literally just, he or she would literally
Don't
just
mean
get the
Trevelyan
book,
is dead.
would be like, okay guys, okay,
Yes.
let's read the excerpt,
A very
turn to
sharp
page
rock.
57.
Yes.
Okay, no,
Somebody gasped. There was a faint stir
Agatha
all around the
Christie
table.
is just going to
Ronnie's
stare deep
voice,
into your
as
soul
he
while
resumed
she's
his questions,
reciting
has a
her own
different note. an odd,
work.
uneasy note.
And then she's going to resume the
You mean
lesson
that Captain
in exactly the
Trevelyan
same
is
expression,
dead?
exactly the same voice.
Yes.
Oh,
There was a pause. It was as
This,
though no one knew
this is
what
giving me
to
brain
ask
rot.
next or how
Giving
to
me
take
brain
this
rot.
unexpected development. And in the pause,
see,
the table started rocking again, rhythmically and
did
slowly.
production
Ronnie
think
spelled
of the
out
fact that
letters
when
aloud.
someone is reading from a book, their facial expressions are different than when they're talking to someone, when they're explaining something? It's
You will
different. When
notice
you read from
that
a
in
book, your
this
facial
section,
expression
even though I have already
changes
established
too.
that many
It
characters
changes.
are naturally
It's not
suspicious
exactly
of
the
an
same.
apparent seance, what appears to be a message from the
Anyways.
spirits both sets up the mystery and establishes a
Basically,
strong
what I'm saying
atmosphere.
is
It's a good
it's all
hook
very
with which
cheap.
to open the novel, and everything will be
Because
given a
the
practical
technology
explanation
after a
by
few
the
years
end.
will wear off, and this will look really
Now,
crappy after a few years.
Mr.
Right now,
Knox
it's a
includes
gimmick.
several rules about the
That's what it
detective,
is. It's a
who
gimmick.
is, of course, a
So,
crucial
as you can
piece of our
tell,
puzzle.
I will probably be
accident
able
must
to
ever help
rant
detective,
about this
nor
whole
must
thing
they ever
for
have an
11
unaccountable
lessons.
intuition
Yes,
which proves to be right,
think I
is one of them.
I'm very capable of doing
And I
that.
always try my hardest
Anyways.
to avoid this sort of thing from happening. Although Miss Marple's skills in understanding human nature may appear to be intuition at times, the detective should, as far as possible, drive your story
Intuition
onward. The long arm of
only in
coincidence
appearance.
cannot be too
Is that
freely
a rule?
employed. Mr. Knox also states
Intuition,
that
but not
the
really.
detective himself must
Okay.
not commit the crime, and
Are we at number
that the
4 now?
detective's sidekick must not conceal from the reader any thoughts which pass
Oh, the
through his
sidekick.
mind.
You know, I hadn't
His
even
intelligence must be slightly,
considered
but very slightly
a sidekick
below
for my
that
story
of the
to
average
the
reader.
main character.
That is certainly the way I have written
Does the
Hercule
sidekick
Poirot's
need
most
to be a
enduring
physical
sidekick,
human
Captain
being?
Hastings. I have to
Does
say, I mostly
I like
agree
the idea of a
with Mr. Knox's
sidekick, but
rules,
I'm not sure if
and I
I
think you will
want them
find
to be a
that
real
most of my
person.
books abide by them. I have a
That's
great deal of respect for my readers, especially for their intelligence, and as such, I never cheat. A cheat, to me, would be deliberately withholding or warping a piece of the puzzle in order to make it impossible for the reader to complete. Max
You need
says
to be
the
able to
solutions
complete
the
the
problems in
puzzle
my
that you're
books
laying
have the
out.
hallmark of a logical and mathematical mind, as well as a
Yeah.
creative one.
You know, I agree
He
with
sees
that.
my books as problems,
100%.
not in an insulting way, I might add,
Huh?
as absorbing as a game of cards. They required just that degree of concentration which is enough to compel complete detachment from the surrounding world. Having said
Okay.
this, I think many of these rules should also, and have also, been broken. So long as the cardinal rule, that
Puzzle
of fair
should
play,
be
is
solvable.
observed above all else. I believe that my book, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, is a stellar example of this principle of fair play. I got hold of a good formula there, and I owe it in part to my brother-in-law, James, who some years previously had said, "Almost everybody turns out to be a criminal nowadays in detective stories, even the detective. What I would like to see is a Watson who turned out to be the criminal." It was a remarkably original thought, and I mulled it over. Then, as it happened,
Then she took his
very
idea
much
and
the
created
same
a
idea
whole book
was
around
also
it.
suggested to me by Lord Louis Mountbatten, as he then was.
Yes,
I
or
thought it was a
have
good idea,
you know,
and considered
you can
it for
name
some
drop
time.
some kind of celebrity.
From the point of view of the
um,
writer, it presented a
that's
certain
one of the best
technical
ways
challenge
to-
which made it interesting
Why didn't I
to
think
do.
of that?
I couldn't
Okay.
really consider Hastings murdering anybody, and it was anyway going to be difficult to do it in such a way that it would not be cheating. Of course, the most stalwart Knoxian might say it breaks one or two of his rules, but I would like to insist that I laid all my cards out from the start. In The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, it is not so much about what the narrator says as what the narrator, Dr. Shepherd, does not say. Some readers have cried indignantly, cheating, an accusation that I have had pleasure in refuting by calling attention to the various turns of phrasing and careful wording. Such little lapses of time as there have to be are nicely concealed in an ambiguous sentence, and Dr. Shepherd, in writing it down, took great pleasure.
Am I supposed to read this whole book to find out what she actually means here? I mean, I can
take, for example, Dr. Shepherd's
assume that what she's
saying
is
chapter.
True, but
he writes, "The letter had been brought in at 20 minutes to 9. It was just on 10 minutes to 9 when I left him, the letter still unread. I hesitated, with my hand on the door handle, looking back and wondering if there was anything I had left undone. But, as Shepherd says himself in his written confession, suppose I had put a row of stars after the first sentence. Would somebody then have wondered what exactly happened in that blank 10 minutes? What happens in those 10 minutes, the reader comes to realize, is the murder of Roger Ackroyd."
So what rule is this then? What is she illustrating with
Cards
this?
on the table. There is an idea prevalent that a detective story is rather like a big race. A number of starters, likely horses, and jockeys. The favourite is by common consent the opposite of a favourite on the race course. In other words, he is likely to be a complete outsider. Spot the least likely person to have committed the crime, and in 9 times out of 10, your task is finished. Since I do not want my faithful readers to fling away my books in disgust, I prefer to warn them beforehand that I do not write that kind of book. This became emphasized in the premise of Cards on the Table. I would promise my reader up front that the game is a straightforward one. Perhaps the most straightforward I had yet attempted. There are only 4 starters, 4 potential culprits, and 4 investigators, and any one of them, given the right circumstances, might have committed the crime. That knocks out forcibly the element of surprise, which created a new challenge for me. I think it is important to challenge yourself as a writer. I intended to
that's
create,
why I took the course.
I think, an equal interest attached to 4 persons, each of whom has committed murder and is capable of committing further murders. They are 4 widely divergent types. The motive that drives each one of them to crime is peculiar to that person, and each one would employ a different method.
You know what? I think I have a lot in common with AI, Agatha Christie, is that I
it is nonetheless
tend to go on and on and
because
on and on
when
without
all
a
is said and done,
point.
it is the mind of the murderer that is of supreme interest.
I have a lot. I mean,
As you can see, the puzzle school of mystery does not mean one turns one's back on other elements. The thrills and the psychology remain crucial. I have written a great number of thrillers in my time, such as The Man in the Brown Suit and Destination Unknown, although I think it is fair to say these are not necessarily my best-known books. I personally don't find the tough school of crime novels very interesting. Violence for violence's sake has never interested me.
Oh, this is just a side
All
thought.
that seems to happen is first one side bashes the other side, and then the other side bashes the first one. But each to their own. And I do give American crime fiction a pretty high place, as it is often more ingenious or imaginative than English writing. I still read a great deal of my fellow crime writers. I think it is important to know the lay of the land, as it were. It is part of my homework, just to check that I am not about to trespass on their ground with an idea germinating in my mind. It is an opportunity to exercise the little grey cells of the brain, as Monsieur Poirot would say. I have written other types of books without rules, per se. I managed to keep the secret.
She's
for
ending the
15
lesson by
years,
saying,
but
you know
I
what?
believe it is
You
well
don't need
known
any
now
rules.
that I am, in truth, the
You
guiding
can write
hand
any
behind the pen of a
murder
Mary
mystery. You don't need
Westcott.
any type of rule.
As Mary
You
Westcott,
don't
I
need
do
it.
not write detective novels. They are simply stories about interesting characters, and they have a strong psychological interest. I felt rather guilty embarking on the first one. Giant spread. But you must always
And here's an
what
example
you want
of
to
not
write.
writing by the rules.
It gave me
and
a little more freedom in
not
terms
writing
of
a
subject
murder
matter.
mystery, the thing you signed
It was
up
mainly
for.
about music.
Here's an example of that.
And betrayed here and there that I knew little about the
Please.
subject from the technical point of
Please.
view. It was well reviewed and sold reasonably for what was thought to be
I choose
a first
to believe
novel.
that
The
this
irony
is
being, of course,
still going to
that it
teach
was
me how
not
to
a first,
write a good
it was
murder
more like
mystery.
an
I
11th
choose
and
to believe
counting.
that. Thank you. Okay, so for the exercises, it's not here because these are the course notes. See, it's basically it's a transcript. Okay, so this is, see, that's the part she just read. Blah blah blah. It's literally the text she was just reading. So takeaways are. Here are actually the takeaways. So you can skip the 16 minutes of the AI Agatha Christie. You can just go here, scroll down, and read the takeaways. Think about the type of story that you want to write and read other examples of the genre. Wow. Take time to consider the rules of the genre in which you are writing and work out where your stories sit within them or outside of them. She didn't even talk about that. She didn't even talk about figuring out where your stories sit within the genre. Have respect for your reader. Okay, yeah, of course. The solutions to the problems in my books have the hallmark of a logical and mathematical mind, as well as a creative one. Okay, so then you'd think the workbook with the exercise would be over here, but no, that's again the same writing course notes. So what you need to do, not to emphasize that I think it's very cheaply done, but you need to go back to lesson 2. Okay, introduction. There you will
Dickens
find.
was a particular favorite.
Yes, okay. Shut up. Here we have writer's workbook. So that's the other document you need to do all the exercises. I feel like I'm running a bit out of steam, so I think I'm going to just skip to... Oh, wait. So the rules of the game. Okay, so these are the exercises. But what I want to do right now is actually I want to talk about the novel that I have in mind, that I've envisioned. So, but I really want to introduce the main character to my story. And how am I going to do that? Well, I think the real Agatha Christie was onto something when she chose, like, Hercule Poirot to be a main character, to be the detective in lots of her books. Because as a Belgian, I can say this. If you're not Belgian, you can't say this. So you can't. But because I'm Belgian, I can say this, is that she was so spot on that Belgians don't tend to be as verbal as people in the UK. They tend to be less verbal, but then when you talk to them about stuff, the Belgians, you find out they have clocked everything. They clocked everything, they've seen everything, they heard everything, they know everything, they aren't very verbal about it. It's a thing, yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but I know why. I feel like I know why she chose a Belgian dude to be the protagonist in a lot of her murder detective novels. It's that the observation part is very high. And, Hercule Poirot, in the end of the novel, he stays rather silent throughout. He's taking it all in. And at the end of the whole book, he's going to give this big monologue, this big expose where he clocked every little thing. And, I think that's spot on for Belgians. I really do think that. So, for me, since I am Belgian too, I want to give that authentic Belgian experience, of course. Belgian. I wanted to also make my main character, because I've had the feedback. I've entered a few contests where I did historical. I entered a few screenwriting contests, and I made it to like quarterfinals and stuff, and they give you feedback. And a lot of feedback was you don't have any structure. That's why I'm taking this course. You don't have any structure. The ideas are very good. The concept is really very good. The concepts are good. The execution isn't very good because you don't have any structure. You don't meet the certain expected story beats in the formula that we expect a screenplay to be, which is very important if you're entering, contests to be picked up by producers or something like that. And also another feedback was like, why are you always writing historical, like in historical times, and also why are you writing in like not why basically it's write what you know. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it contemporary, not going to make it any historical period. I'm going to make it contemporary. It's going to be a contemporary novel. Like she said, she likes a social message. I'm always, and it's not forced for me. It's just, it comes spontaneously. It's always a layer in all of my writing. The social issue is going to be in there. And so I want the main character to be close to what I know. So very close to home. And that's why I chose this name for the main character. I'm getting a bit shy in revealing this, but this is actually why I started to do this course, right? So I have this name. I'm going to write it down here. Thing is, if I reveal it now, what the name of the main character is going to be, like the one who is going to solve the thing, the murder mystery, is that it's going to be definite. It's not going to be an idea anymore. I'm going to have to commit to this. Ooh, that's very scary. I think I might do it anyway. But I think the best way to do it is to, let me just set that up, is to let him introduce himself. I think it's best that I let him introduce himself by letting him speak, right? So to speak, as a manner of speaking. So let me just set that up just a sec. Okay, so what I need to do here is enter this slash u is c zf xi rg. Please work. Come on. Yes! Okay, so this is me right now. This is live. So what I want to do is I'm going to test myself. I'm going to try to push myself here, the limits, and let the character that I have envisioned to start, the protagonist, the person who's going to solve the murder mystery that I'm going to write, I'm going to let him introduce himself here on the page. So bear with me for a moment. I need to let it come out. Oh my god, I hope my computer has enough battery. 1 hour 58 rested. Okay. Okay. Where? Let's place this here. I need to write not from the place of thinking, because then I'm not going to even have a whole page. I'm just going to be able to write the title, and then the rest of the page is going to remain blank. If I write from here, I need to stop thinking, and right now I'm thinking. Maybe because I'm translating my thoughts to English or something, I don't know. How would the main character start the novel? How would this character introduce themselves? Is this okay? How's this? Okay. How would they introduce themselves? How would they introduce themselves? This is going to be a long video, guys. How would they introduce themselves? My hands are sweating. Gosh. They don't usually sweat, so it's just that I'm very aware that I'm being perceived. I've lost the I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop here. I don't even know how long I've been writing for. But I'm going to stop this here. Is it still recording even? Okay. So let me read what I just wrote, and I'll continue this the next. Should we do the writer's workbook still? We can do it after I read this part. Okay, so what I just wrote. So here is my main character. So I'm getting shy again. I'm feeling anxious again because I'm making this like hard now. I'm going to make this for real. But this would be how the character introduces himself and the story. But I needed to stop there. I could have gone on, but then the video, I don't even know how long it is. It doesn't say. But anyways, here's the introduction. Oh gosh. Am I really doing this? Okay. So this is what I wrote just now. If you were to ask me to introduce myself, I would start maybe with So imagine someone else's voice here, okay? If you were to ask me to introduce myself, I would start first of all with my name, which is Karel Benjamin de Walters. And I chose this name because I really wanted it to sound really Belgian, you know. Karel Benjamin. It has to be pronounced Benjamin de Walters. And it has to be de Walters because it has to have de Walters, because there's this celebrity here in Belgium called Madeleine de Wouters. It's giving me very that posh feeling if you have de. And it's completely made up. There is no name de Walters. I just invented it. So which is Karel Benjamin de Walters. My clients call me Mr. de Walters. My friends and family call me Benjamin. My close friends and loved ones call me Ben. So basically, the main character is called Ben. I will extend that privilege to you, my reader friend. If you were wondering why I sound the way I sound, or if you were wondering why I had mentioned earlier that my clients call me Mr. de Walters, the answer to both is the same explanation, has the same explanation, is explained. Okay, so I write this whole thing, but I don't edit it. Of course, this is unedited. I am a notaris, but then I forgot what is that in English, notaris? Notary. So I just wrote notary. So I can Google it. Oh my god. If notaris isn't notary in English, I'm going to lose my mind. Notary. That's a relief. Notary. So, as my father was before me, and I am a notary, as my father was before me, and his father was before him. Talking of my father, how can any man... This is where this guy gets very heavy, okay? This character. And you can tell... No, let me just... As my father was before me, and his father was before him. Talking of my father, how can any man introduce himself without speaking of their father? Because as far as I believe, all men owe at least one basic feature of their being to their fathers, like it or not, be it their hair color, their eyes, their jaw, and in having that jaw, perhaps their voice. They could have their broad shoulders, a certain way of holding themselves that might seem identical to their fathers, or not at all. In any case, the reason I bring this up at all 2 times at all and 2 times, okay. Is of course that I was offered and I accepted the chance to follow in his footsteps, but only after, at a certain point in my youth, he had sat me down for a very serious talk and handed over a card. The Chariot, it said. Remember this card well, said my father. It says that all the world's a stage and we are all actors within it, but not in the sense of putting on a show, but that to move through life one must have a role to play. See? A role to play, and for my father and I, it has been the role of being a notary. It's not a show, it's not acting, or at least not all of it. It's a vehicle, just like in the card. A vehicle that you can take through the stages of a life. So my son, you have the choice to carve your own whole path. You are free to do so, but in adventuring and denying yourself the vehicle that I'm offering in favor of treading the path on foot, you may after many years come to the conclusion that you should have taken the opportunity when you had the chance and the support. And that is what I, as a father, want my son, whom I love very much, to avoid. Having said that, my son, even when you choose to follow in my footsteps and become a notary too, the vehicle doesn't drive itself. Remember, the world's a stage. You're still going to have to perform, but don't be afraid, son, even if there are no guarantees when you take this profession. You must drive the vehicle in your own way. Be sure to always have balance and remain modest, because to be sure, this is a privilege not given to everyone. So when you take it with respect for all those who would never have the chance to have been offered what I, as a father, would offer you now. For everything you do in service of the self, be sure to balance that with something in service of the other too. You can learn this lesson the hard way, or you can just take it from me. And I took it. I did take it. All of this to say that yes, I do come from a place of privilege, but I have always taken my father's lesson with me every step of my career, and his wisdom hasn't failed me. Today I'm older when he sat me down for that talk, and I still have the very same card on my desk. You might think, now why should I interest myself in this boring notary doing boring work in the most boring of places? I'm just noticing right now I didn't actually introduce him as a Belgian. Anyways, my answer is, you might be surprised to learn how exceedingly unboring, even outrageous, many of my cases tend to be. As a notary, I would edit that in. Especially the ones concerning the reading of the will. I guarantee you that you will. It's that you will. It's under. What's that? Underscored. Be surprised by the following case I am about to present to you, involving another extreme case involving last-minute changes to the will with every expected and unexpected consequence. And I do believe that my father's little lesson rings very true, or may have even been the key to solving the case. What's this case? I can explain simply and technically, called professional and discreet, as I'm professionally obliged to do, but I had to stop there. The significance of it is anything but. So that's 2 buts in one sentence. I would have left that. I'm going to scratch that last part. So let's just, for me, I'll end it to... And I do believe that my father's little lesson rings very true, or may have even been the key to solving the case. For me, that's going to go in. I think that's the very first part of the very first chapter of my murder mystery novel. Am I going to do the exercises in the workbook? Define your genre. Okay, murder mystery. Study the genre's rules. Write down 3 rules. No. Where do you fit? I don't know. Step 4, respect your reader. Okay. Yes, I am respecting them. Step 5, put it into practice. I just did that. Okay, so that was my very first pages, very first paragraphs, very first words of my main character, Ben, because I'm just going to refer to him as Ben from now on. It's going to be Ben. And that's it. I'm really looking forward to the next lesson, actually. And I'll see you there. Okay. I don't know how long this video is. It's going to be huge, long file. But, I really wanted to write. I promised you I would write on camera, and that's what I just did. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're along for the ride now. Next, I'm going to keep it for the next lesson. The setup for the case. Okay, this case of the will, where, his father's little lesson may be the key to solving the whole thing. So, okay, that's it from me today. See you next time, guys. Bye-bye.